After last month, I sort of prepared enough, and then I didn't do a news update because we had plenty of other talks. Thanks, Raf and Damien. But as usual, I underestimated the amount of work this takes, and so there's another 80 links or something that I've got ready now for next month. So just mention the release 1.23, taking a little bit longer than expected. There's a few things that are proving a little challenging to get out the door. One of them is the USB device support, which Damien talked about last month. PyScript issues, Andrew, I'm sure you're interested in those. They're coming along. A little bit of this is scope creep as well. The PyScript stuff wasn't really on the radar as an important thing, but the PyScript team are moving along pretty quickly. So there's a bunch of stuff, especially around like async IO and that kind of thing that Damien and Jim are trying to fix. There's also IPv6, which also I wasn't aware was going into this release, but proper IPv6 support is meant to be in for 1.23. That's kind of a stretch goal. But on top of that, a whole bunch of other things. One that I'm personally looking forward to is that the deck, like collections.deck, has been expanded. So we've now got a proper deck in the system. Previously, it was a very small subset of what the regular deck container could do. So that's tripped me up a number of times when I've tried to port libraries to MicroPython. So 1.23, stay tuned. I will give you more news as to when that's coming as I can. Probably worth mentioning that CircuitPython 9 has been released. Congratulations to our CircuitPython cousins over at Adafruit. They got some really interesting stuff that they've been working on as well, including USB host, which isn't really on our radar yet. Synth.io to play music. That's pretty cool stuff. And they've also merged up to MicroPython 1.21. So they've got a lot of the MicroPython goodness in there as well. So hopefully we're going to backport a few things and remind me to talk about the LED animations library later. Someone remind me. I think I put a note in here, but anyway, so here we go. This is pretty recent news, only the last couple of days, but M5 Stack, which we'll talk about. I've got a few M5 Stack things recently, but M5 Stack make a whole bunch of ESP32 based boards, and just recently Espressif decided to invest in them, and they've now got a majority stake in M5 Stack. So according to a tweet for M5 Stack, nothing's really going to change except that they're more flush with cash. Although you'd have to think that they've secured their microcontrollers with a partnership with Espressif. But yeah, it was interesting news to see Espressif having gone down that path. And this was sort of last month's news, but Renesas bought Altium, or at least plan to acquire it. I don't think it's gone through yet. I'm not sure if anyone can confirm that, but they're looking at spending 9.1 billion on them. So for those of us here that use Altium, which is a PCB layout tool, very popular in Australia because it was originally designed and built in Australia. Tasmania, I think, was the original home of it. Sorry? Yeah, Protel was called perhaps 20 years ago. Yeah, and now it's grown to Altium. It's grown to quite a full-featured system. So what Renesas plan to do with that, it's not clear yet. But yeah, it was interesting seeing Renesas have actually made quite a few investments, and it's partially because the Japanese economy is doing very well. But this was one of their purchases that's certainly made news around circles that I'm in, just because there's a lot of people who've used Protel and Altium in the Australian market. Arduino had a conference, I guess you could say. A lot of it was online. It was a 3-day conference, and they were talking about all sorts of things Arduino related, which these days also is intrinsically related to MicroPython. So there was a whole bunch of MicroPython things to talk about there, including their latest chip, which was the Nano Matter, which they're also advertising MicroPython support for. So that's good. Matt's new hardware, I didn't get a chance to put many pictures in, but there was actually a lot that came in this month, and a lot of it was based around that M5 Stack care package. So a bunch of boards. I'll whip through. Okay, go through all these kinds of things that you can get through M5 Stack, which are like ways to extend their boards. Like if you want to add CAN, or if you want to add, what else have we got here? MIDI, a whole bunch of things to do, environmental sensors, that kind of stuff. They're all based around having that Grove port, which is a 4-pin plug, fairly standard, fairly easy to extend with things. The more interesting stuff is the dial that Sean keeps stealing from me. I can't see if you can see this.
Yeah, we can.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah. Okay, so that's what the dial looks like. I wonder if I can plug it in and turn it on. The dial's kind of interesting. These are all ESP32 based, unsurprisingly, especially now with Espresso's interest. Is it the right way up? Can't tell from my screen, but you can see that there's a rotary encoder around the outside of this thing, driven by these are all ESP32S3s with a bunch of flash and a bunch of RAM. This particular one has that rotary encoder. It also has a button if you shift this thing up. It also has a touchscreen as well. And on the back, there's a couple of various ports to get peripherals into and out of. It's pretty cute. It's also got like a little ring so you can easily mount this into you just cut a appropriately sized hole into something and then screw it on. That's the dial. We did talk about that a month or two ago when it was announced. There's the card pewter, which is this crazy looking thing. Again, ESP32 based. Let me turn that thing off if I can figure out how. Which I can't seem to remember how to do it. Sorry guys, hang on a sec. Okay, that should be better. So this thing has a keyboard on the front. It's got a Stamp S3, which is so a lot of these are actually powered by their M5 stack have these Stamp units, which are just a very small package of like an ESP32 chip, in this case the S3. This one has a little built-in display. It has a battery on the back that goes ding. You can actually play little basic tunes with this, and even with the default software that's on there, you can record voice and play it back. It's only got like one port for an extension, and I think that's one of the main complaints with this particular device. But it's like a pre-packaged little throwback to sort of the Commodore 64 days. It's kind of got that vibe to it. Pretty cute though. There was a question in the chat, which I've not. It was mentioned there. MicroPython module. Oh, that's interesting, Carlos. Thank you. Right, so Carlos tells us on the Arduino Day they mentioned the Arduino MicroPython module, which brings some of the familiar Arduino software into MicroPython. That's interesting. Cool. Moving on to there's only a couple more of the M5 stack things I want to show off. This is a got that upside down, haven't I? No. So this is another device with a display with a rotary encoder. Really nice little rotary encoder with a button. It's designed to go into a DIN panel, so it's actually got like a fitting on the back of it, so you can run into a DIN fitting. On the back, it's got a bit more extension than a lot of their other ones, so you can easily plug stuff in. It's also got power and battery charge circuit on it. Again, quite a cute little neat device. It sort of satisfies a bunch of use cases. But probably my favorite is this one, which is the cute little Nano C6. It is tiny. It's half the size of their Atom boards. I don't know how they got the naming, Atom and Nano. I don't know what's going on, but not a whole lot of expansion available on this. There's just the one Grove port. But if you just want to connect a sensor or anything like that, this thing has Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. It has a button on the front with an LED. In fact, it's got two LEDs in it. One of them is multicolor. And it's got an IR LED as well. It's a fantastic little device. On that, there is a PR for ESP32C6 support. This is RISC-V based ESP32. We've got a PR for that that's had a bit of activity, but I've got MicroPython running on this now with Wi-Fi, with Bluetooth. Some of the Bluetooth tests are failing, so if we can get some people to test these out, that'd be really handy. But I think it's a really cute little device, and I think they're $5.95 US. So yeah, really cute. Right, I think that's the ESP32 mostly. Sorry, the M5 stack stuff mostly covered. What else did I have? There was the STM32 Summit, which I'll cover in a sec, but I did pick up one of their new Nucleos, which is a U0 board. It's a new range of ultra low power stuff. It's Cortex M0, but with ultra low power support. I've started getting MicroPython support for that. We don't yet have it. That is coming. And the Gurgle word clock, which I think Raf's got starting to get put together. So I'll find some links to these, but in the meantime, let me try and show what it looks like. These are, I think it's actually some kids that have released this. You can go buy it on Etsy, but it's a word clock, and it's pretty neatly packaged. They've got the software for it. It's all written in MicroPython. They give you the 3D print files so that you can put the housing together. They've got mobile phone application to synchronize the clock and tailor it up and stuff. And so when you buy it, you can buy it in 2 packs. The one I've got has one of these front panels, which is really neatly made, and also comes with a 8x8 NeoPixel panel that goes in the back of it. That's the cheap option. I think it's about $25. And they give you like videos on how to connect a Raspberry Pi Pico or an ESP32 to it, and to drive it so it shows the time in one of those fancy word clock formats. Really cute, really interesting system. Oh, and the more expensive packages that they also sell the micro and whatnot as well. So it's a bit more complete. So yeah, I think it's a really good system, especially if you got like youngish kids that want to play around with something like this. I think it's perfect for that. My dad's online. Dad, I'm expecting to play with this with Hayden, which is our my 11-year-old nephew. I think it's perfect for that kind of stuff. Right, so that's my new hardware. Right, so the STM32 Summit was just a online conference that STM32 were held, free to attend. You can go back and watch all the videos if you want to. But they did make a few announcements, and it was pretty compelling for the MicroPython people amongst us, which is all of us here. Yeah, Simon, you've got one as well then. I'm just reading on the chat. It sounds like Simon's got one of the Gurgle app word clocks. Cool. Right, so of the stuff that ST announced, the C0s were interesting. Like I've got sort of the summary here, right? Cheap. The C0 range that they're advertising is intended to basically replace all the 8-bit stuff. So really cheap stuff, but actually getting into the point where it's useful. So I guess their advertising material for this is like 8-bit prices, but they're 32-bit micros. But with up to 256K of flash and 36K of RAM, we can run MicroPython on these things. So I'm looking forward to getting my hands on one of those. The U0s are kind of the low end version of their U5s, which have previously existed. The U5s are Cortex M4s, but the U0s are Cortex M0s. So these things are super low power and really affordable, and especially if you're buying them in quantity. The U5's got even more powerful with a whole bunch of like graphics acceleration, and tons of RAM to support that. So it's pretty interesting. And the H7s are even more powerful again. The H7s are their M7, Cortex M7 micros, super fast, tons of acceleration stuff. WBA55's new BLE stuff based on the H5 cores. All these things might mean nothing to you in the STM world. Don't stress. For those that know this stuff, it's kind of interesting seeing what they're doing. The MP2 was interesting too because it was on the same die. They're producing a Linux-capable 64-bit core, as well as what they call a real-time core running a Cortex M33. And so one of the features that's coming along in MicroPython 1.23 is OpenAMP support. OpenAMP it's an open source library to do asymmetric multiprocessing. And so what it allows us to do is spin up firmware running on a second core the MicroPython has connection to, and run stuff on both cores in a fairly independent and neat way. Be really interesting to try that sort of stuff on the MP2. Carlos, there are some ML accelerations. They were talking a lot about, sorry, the question here is there any ML accelerators in the new ST chips? The answer is on most of those ones that I've mentioned, no, but they've got a lot in the pipeline that are. In fact, there's the N6, which I've just mentioned at the bottom here. That one's meant to be super powerful for ML processing. Most of the rest doesn't seem to have a heap of hardware dedicated for it. Yeah, the big topics were AI at the edge. That's a big thing that they kept talking about, and security. Also, Carlos, it's probably worth mentioning they've got a whole bunch of software to support ML on these devices, even like the H7s in particular, which I think do have some support for acceleration. But they were talking a pretty strong talk about providing this free software which allows you to get off-the-shelf models or even design your own models to run on these cores. So machine learning's, they have to be talking about it at the moment. It's so popular. Yeah, it was the Nano Edge was the big one. Yeah, but there was actually 3 different ways you could get machine learning models onto the system. So I can't remember all the names of them, but Nano Edge looks most interesting. I will press on. This was from last month where I was talking about I was going to talk about the new Nano C6s, but I managed to get my hands on one. So that's all useless now. We've covered it. The Embedded Open Source Summit was a conference that was held over 2 or 3 days in Washington, I think, in the US. The one topic I wanted to pick out was this talk by Ryan Erickson. Sorry, I missed something in the chat again. Yeah, cool. Which was building wireless products faster with Zephyr and MicroPython. So just as a recap, like we do have the Zephyr builds for MicroPython, but it's a bit of a different perspective. It's kind of like you're building MicroPython and using Zephyr to provide you the hardware access. What Ryan was trying to do at his company Azurio, which folks might know is layered connectivity. They're a US company that's been making wireless devices for quite a while. Had a rename recently. But they're using Zephyr and they wanted to have MicroPython running on it as like a scripting interface to their existing systems. And so Ryan talks about how to do that. And they basically took the embed port of MicroPython and ran that as a module in Zephyr, and then provided access to the Zephyr file system and to the C device drivers. So really interesting stuff as far as I'm concerned. Like our work could really use some of this stuff as well. So I think I'm going to spend a bit of time looking into this kind of work. Rust versus MicroPython. So Kevin McAleer, who has spoken at this, he's a friend of the meetup. He donned his fireproof vest and then started to talk about which is better, Rust or MicroPython. He basically framed it as that. So got some polarizing discussion, worth a bit of a chuckle. The Flipper Zero, a lot of people know of. Interesting device, unless you're in Canada where it's been banned. Whole story there, which I won't go into. But someone's got MicroPython running on Flipper Zeros using the Flipper deployment package. So that was interesting. So if you're interested in that segment, go knock yourself out. Paul McWhorter, I stumbled across his videos a while ago, but he's been releasing lessons on, these are really like absolute beginner lessons, but they're really quite thorough, and he's released them consistently for like a year now. And so he's up to number 66. He's got a YouTube channel, and he's already got like the next 13 scheduled. So most of them use MicroPython, and so he's just explaining how to use a Raspberry Pi PKW. Again, probably useful if you've got someone sort of young but advanced in computers. They could like really learn a lot from this guy. Thank you, Paul, for putting them together. I have a Playdate, which is a beautiful little device. And Christian Walther, who's been involved in the MicroPython and CircuitPython communities for a while, he's been doing a lot of game development with the Pew Pew libraries, which I think we've talked about before. But he's managed to get MicroPython running on the Playdate. And this is running in the Playdate sandbox using their APIs. But yeah, basically, again, managed to get that MicroPython embedded port running in the Playdate. So I'm hoping to get that running, maybe not tonight, but soon. Yeah. Playdate, how many games we got in the Playdate now? Did you say?
It was like over 8,000 or something.
Yeah, there's literally thousands of games available for the Playdate. It's really taken off with developers, and it's a beautifully made little device. Can play with it later. Antares, who some of you may know, his real name Salvatore Sanfilippo. He's the guy who started Redis. Very prolific programmer, hacker, and he's been really getting into MicroPython, and it's been fantastic to watch him come up with drivers, font rendering stuff, all sorts of stuff. And this one where I've got the screenshot here, he actually had like a really clever e-ink driver that this e-ink device is only a monochrome device, but he managed to squeeze out 32 levels of gray with it. with some, and he's written up like how he did it and the techniques used. It's really worth a good read if you're interested in that kind of stuff. He's loving using Viper. He's yeah, he's really digging into it. So it's it's good to have him on side. Walter, which I have here somewhere. Walter is now available on Crowd Supply, or at least it's the Crowd Supply is active. So if you want to put in your pre-orders, you can get that now. Walter's a little device which has cellular GPS or GNSS, whole bunch of connectivity options. Really nice little package. Again, I've got one here with the antennas and everything. You can have a play. They're supporting MicroPython as well as a bunch of other programming languages as well. I don't know anything about the company called GWinStack, but their latest oscilloscope is a pretty fancy looking oscilloscope and it runs MicroPython. So you can actually script your oscilloscope to do various things, which is pretty cool. I'd like to see that trend continue. Peter Practicus, who's I've had a number of conversations with on Twitter, has been using MicroPython for his train set. So his level crossing is now driven by MicroPython, which he seemed pretty stoked with. And someone's already using the M5 dial with MicroPython. So yeah, can display nearby flights with an open source website that, sorry, with a freely usable website. And we're down to the quick bytes, which I threw together. There's support for the OpenMV cam, the latest OpenMV cam, which is a beautiful little device which does machine vision stuff with MicroPython. So Edge Impulse have announced support for that, which means you can do machine learning with them. There are at least 2, I think, here, tutorials on how to do asynchronous web server stuff with the Raspberry Pi Pico. Most of these are from first principles, like opening the socket and returning actual HTTP stuff. I don't know how many of these tutorials we need, but it's good to see people documenting things. The Random Node Tutorials folks have also released a book, like basically taking a lot of their tutorials and packaging it into a PDF. I've got the PDF. They're well-written tutorials. So, but yeah, learn Raspberry Pi Pico, pick it up with MicroPython. So look for $30 US. It's a pretty good deal. On Hackaday, there was an article about hacking an actual Wi-Fi toothbrush with an ESP32 C3, and they got Rickroll running on this little display on these Wi-Fi toothbrush. Didn't have anything to do with MicroPython except that you could run MicroPython on that device now. Another REST API. Modbus is now available. There's a library for Modbus on MicroPython if you're into that sort of stuff. There was another tutorial on making a cellular connection with the Raspberry Pi Pico W. So the A9G board is a separate cheap board you can buy that does cellular connections. It has a UART API, and this tutorial talks about how you can drive that that API. There's a whole tutorial on deploying MicroPython to the Studio Xiao C3. If that's of interest. Yeah, did you buy one of those toothbrushes, Carlos? That's cool. Please let us know how you go with porting MicroPython to it. That'd be great. The LED animation library. So CircuitPython have a really good LED animation library. I have been porting that, so I can show you that working tonight. It allows you to do things like pulse a strip of LEDs or cycle them through different rainbow patterns and that kind of stuff. It was a pretty trivial port, so I'll get that online as soon as I can. Most of it is actually online already. And so that's it for the most of the stuff I wanted to show. But closing thoughts, neither of these are particularly related to MicroPython, but BitLooney, who does a whole bunch of really interesting YouTube content, electronic engineering and sorts of crazy stuff he does. But he was involved in the what's that thing called? I can't remember the name of it. I can't remember his name either. Should have taken better notes. There's an effort to do the Tiny Tape Out. Tiny Tape Out is an effort to get to allow people to create their own die, like on an ASIC, and do it cheaply. So you pay a couple $100 and you get a certain small section of die on that gets created into an actual ASIC, a CPU. And so there's a couple of hundred people who are involved in that. They all had their little piece of the die, and then they put that in a matrix. So each one of the chips that was created have all of the designs on it, and you, through a matrix selection, you can choose which one you want to run. So BitLooney got involved in this, and he put together the world's craziest Rickroll, where it's literally an ASIC, which his part, all it contains is images of a Rickroll. But the way he went through it and the way he explained it is really well worth a listen. It's also worth noting that the Tiny Tape Out is going through another series. So if you're interested in this low-level stuff, super interesting stuff, I think. And previously, sort of unattainable, you needed megabucks to get ASICs done. So getting experience in getting these produced is fantastic, I think. I can't remember, Matt, someone is the name of the guy who's Van. I'll pick it up for next month. In a similar vein, Yuri Sharkid, who does the Walkway simulator, he also did some stuff where he built a FET, a transistor, in the shape of skulls, just because he could. Like, it's available and he could do it. And these transistors actually worked, which is pretty cool. And then, yeah, my Midjourney image for this month is a whole bunch of little micro snakes, micro pythons, programming. That is all I've got for you. Matt Van, thanks, Carlos. Yes, Matt Van is the Tiny Tape Out guy. Now, I'm out of breath. Were there any questions or comments or any other news items that we should share that I've forgotten about? No. Robert, you've been busy contributing to the various ports that you take an interest in. You're getting involved in the IPv stuff.
Yeah, I'm waiting for any comments on that.
Yep. It's definitely on Damien's radar. So. Cool. All right. Well, if there's no other comments, might wrap it there, and hopefully the pizza will arrive soon. Soon. Cool. These will be published. There's a location. That is a good question. Where is that? At the moment, they're still running locally, but I will fix that. So Melbourne.
Yeah.
That's the location there. I'll put it in the chat, but we're kind of trying to. I used to do these in a presentation format, and the problem was it was difficult then to share those links without sharing around the presentations. So I'm trying to do it straight into the HTML on a blog. Where is that chat window? That is there for posterity. I haven't linked to last month's videos, but I'll do that as well. Thanks again, Barry, for putting those videos together. And that, I think, is that. Stop sharing.